I'm Leon Todd.
I'm Troy Nababan.
Welcome to our new gear podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We're very, very excited to talk about guitar gear and audio gear and just get super nerdy. As you can see, there's a bunch of gear behind us here at Hammerspace Recording, owned and operated by friend of the channel, Mr. Troy Nababan over here. How you doing today, Troy?
I'm doing really well, Uncle Leon. How you feeling, mate?
Pretty darn good.
It's about time. We've been talking about doing this for, I don't know, 6 months, more.
Definitely around half a dozen months. And I think you're setting the agenda for this one today. I just rocked up.
Just rocked up. He brought his camera. I brought the recording studio and the microphones. So that's it. But I think we'll try and do this. I don't know how often we'll do it, but we'll do a couple of them. Be quite fun. We tend to talk about a lot of gear and recording and all this sort of stuff anyway. So this is committing it to video/tape. So that'd be fun. Yeah, I haven't recorded a podcast for ages too. This is going to be getting back into the swing of it.
Troy is very much more experienced in the podcasting sphere than I am. If you like this kind of thing, be sure to let us know in the comment section below. Hit subscribe or hit follow in your favorite podcast app, all those kind of things. We're going to tear straight into it. Troy, where are we starting today? What are we talking about?
Let's talk about some stuff that's been on your channel in the last week, Uncle Leon.
I think that's a pretty good idea. If you don't already follow my channel, I'm Leon Todd. Look me up on YouTube.
Now's the time. You might be watching this on YouTube right now.
On my channel.
So just smash that button.
Yeah.
Do you say that? Do you say you don't really say that, do you?
Never. That's not my brand. My brand is more about positive mental energy and all the legends and champions and trendsetters.
Mental energy, Xavier, for Charles Xavier. That button, X-Men.
I think we're going to need an X-Men reference button on here. What have I had on the channel recently? I think the coolest thing is you might be able to see it in shot.
There's a couple of things, Leon. There's two things in particular, but yeah, let's start with the head first amp. But can you see that? Is that on the camera?
Maybe it's just behind my shoulder. But head first amplification, the Alta, which if you didn't see that video, it's basically like a library of all the best Marshall style tones in one. So 3 channels. 100 watts, really cool MIDI implementation. Mm-hmm. You've got stuff like, popular mods like the Jose mod, the Bright Cap variations on there. There's a vintage and modern switch, 2 master volumes.
And it's all MIDI controllable as well.
All
right?
MIDI controllable as well. Made by the wizard himself, Jason Tong over in Melbourne. And if you don't follow the Head First Amplification YouTube channel and you like amps and you like nerding out about gear, definitely do it. Jason is... well, like a lot of the greatest Aussies that we claim, originally a Kiwi. So you might say he's the Russell Crowe of amplification.
Yep.
We might say he's the Aussie Dave Friedman. But yeah, really, really great amp. We had it in here earlier and did the turn everything up to 10 and put some earplugs in and feel your shorts quake.
Yeah, to be fair, we played it mostly with earplugs in rather than not, so we could get it super loud. You can see the cabinet. I think you can see the cabinet underneath it, which is a... JCM 900 cab with T75s in it. We ran it through that. We ran it through Greenback's cab as well, and that sounded really good. I think I probably preferred it, the dirty stuff through the Greenbacks, but the clean sound through the T75s was awesome. Really, really cool. And it's it's really great. I mean, I've been watching a lot of the Head First videos over the last couple of months. I'm not really certain how it came up on my YouTube algorithm, but I've been watching heaps of mod videos. I can solder mic leads, but I can't really do anything with 240 I get too scared about. So I'm not going to open my amps up and touch it because I don't want to blow myself up. But Jason's videos are awesome. And I don't know if you find this too, but when you sort of read how the amps are designed and put together, it just, at least for me, it helps me to dial tones in. When I think about how the gain structure works out and where the EQ exists in the path and bright caps and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, big time.
So I guess I wonder if you do this too, but we've spoken about this sort of stuff in the past.
Oh, and I've watched heaps of videos of me I need to go and immediately try that on one of my amps where,
And you do that in the Fractal stuff as well, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember, not to pump you up too much, Uncle Leon, but the video that you did virtually modding in JCM 800.
Yep.
Because you did that, and then I went and did that on my Axe 8, and that's the only tone I use in that now.
Yeah,
because I really liked it. But it's also one of those scary things if you just twist it. Not scary in digital because you twist it and you're not going to blow anything up, but you don't really know what you're doing, and if you're doing it right. But again, sorry, a little bit of a tangent there. But yeah, Jason's videos and all that are awesome. And so I've been watching a lot of them, and then just by coincidence, Leon, the head's finished, the Alta head's finished, and I've watched a few clips on that, and now Uncle Leon's got it. So I think I've said to you like once a week, like when you get that amp, man, I want to hear it.
We need to turn it up. Jason's a wicked player as well, which I like. When they play, you're like, that's what I want to hear someone do through that kind of amp. It's, I don't know, sometimes people just get it, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's awesome that he can do the amp stuff and play, because there's other people who I love listening to speak about amps and amp mods. And, we were talking about Tone Talk earlier. It's like, listening to Dave Friedman talk is just like being at the feet of the guru. But, it's always in reference to recorded tones. So you kind of got to go and like do your follow-up and go and listen to the album he was talking about. And then you're like, oh, cool, I can hear it. Whereas with Jason, it's like, we did this mod, have a listen to what it sounds like with an Explorer in, drop C# or something like that. And you're like, yes, this is my vibe. So and a lot of good feedback on that video as well. So hopefully some people went out and ordered one, because I think they're being built in small batches. So you kind of got to be, it's like first come, first served.
And I watched that video, I think like minutes after it came out. I think I put my kids to bed, and then the video just happened to appear on the thing. So I watched that. And I messaged you straight away, because the thing that I was most surprised about is I thought the clean channel was really, really good. I was expecting a really great dirty channel, but the clean channel was, I don't want to say it's surprising, but like, when I think of like modded Marshalls and that sort of thing, I just think dirt.
Yeah, the clean's an afterthought. It's there to, tick a marketing box.
It's really cool. And so we tried that today through the T75 cab. I think it was the Strat. I've just got like a Strat that I really like, and played a few riffs on that. I was like, oh, well, that's a clean. That's not just a usable clean. That's a very nice clean, and the one I sort of want to play with now.
Yeah, it reminds me of and I've never played a real one, but I've got a JTM 45, and those amps are just the same volume no matter what. They just get dirtier as you turn them up, but in the lower range of it, there's this thing where you're like, man, I just wish this was a lot louder. So something like the JTM 4500s that you see, I think Marshall made a bunch of them back in the day.
Is that a JTM 100?
Probably called a JTM 100, but don't quote me on that. Someone in the comments who knows more about Marshalls I think it's like the Hendrix amp, like that kind of thing. So there's,
I'm a bit like, my Marshall knowledge is not like I know nothing, but it's limited. And there's like, the more I watch these videos, man, like the Head First ones, or I've been listening to a bit of Tone Talk recently as well. I'm like, oh man, I don't know anything, and it's kind of overwhelming. I get obsessed with stuff. Like I'm on a speaker thing at the moment. We might talk about some speakers later, but my Marshall, which is at the bottom there, I've got a 77 JMP, which is awesome.
We got a video with that on my channel.
That's right.
Blasting it. It sounds amazing.
That's a really, really cool amp. That doesn't have a clean sound though.
No.
That's like balls out rock and roll. And then when you wind it back, or if you try and dial it in for clean, it's just too nasally. Probably because of the bright cap that's in there, I guess. But even then, I don't know, man. It sounds great for the sound that it does.
They're like horizons in tone. Like once you start going down a particular rabbit hole, it's like, especially, and I forget that so many people who like guitar, it's the foundational elements might be totally different to what we're into, which is, for me
it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah, it's okay to be wrong. I'm wrong all the time, and
Dokken.
I'm okay. Yeah, it's 80s rock.
You have to like Dokken. If you don't like Dokken, or specifically George Lynch, then just get in the bin.
Get in the bin. If you don't like King's X, we don't.
You don't
have
like
time
King's
for you
X?
either.
Yeah, we don't talk to you.
The official band of this particular podcast will definitely be King's X, and the goal will be one day to get Ty Tabor on here.
Done.
To just talk about anything except tone, because
Ty's got it. You reckon that guy likes chili sauce?
Probably.
There's like a lot of guys that just love chili sauce.
Yeah.
Some guys are into like drinking lots of alcohol. Not looking at anyone fry at amplification videos, but
hey, I reckon Steve would like a good chili sauce as well.
Yeah.
Looks like someone who would enjoy the finer things in life. All right, let's pick like 5 of our favorite guitar gods from the 80s. We've got George. Let's put Red Beach in there.
Red Beach, of course.
Let's put John Sykes in there.
Oh, yeah, of
the
course.
Elusive. We'll put a Zach in there.
Yep.
And who else? Who can we round this out? Maybe a Warren DiMartini.
Yep.
They're 5 guitar players I really, really like. One of those guys would
love a chili sauce.
Hot and spicy, and another would surprisingly not be as into it. Who do you reckon would be surprisingly not as into it?
I don't know, man. I don't want to say this, but maybe Red Beach.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember reading Red Beach's website?
It was so good. Oh, man.
It was one of the best things ever. There was Paul Gilbert's website and Red Beach's website. And I just remember, this is before you had Facebook and before you could follow these people on Instagram and just pester them enough.
It might still be up. If you haven't checked it out, Red Beach's website. And I mean, this was 2006, 2007. I was reading this stuff. And he's got all these stories. His barbecue.
The barbecue one is all-time legendary.
Like, spoiler alert, but his barbecue bursts into flames and he pushes it into his pool and
I think I remember the quote being like, what people need to realize is I am Homer Simpson. Which when you're, 18 years old and you're reading about this guy who you've only seen in music magazines, living the dream, you're like, no, that's not right. You can't be a normal person.
My other favorite story is he talks about loving Coors Light, which me reading that as an 18-year-old, and we don't really have Coors in Australia, I was like, oh, what's that beer? And then when we went to America the first time,
obviously it's a great beer.
Yeah, and Leon doesn't drink. I don't really drink very much, so it's that's again why we talk about chili sauce and not alcohol. But we went to America in like 2012 for the first time, and I remember being so dead set. First thing I would do is I want to get myself a Coors Light. And
Step 1 was get an In-N-Out burger. Step 2 was get a Coors Light.
We went to Hooters that night as well.
We did. We had quite a day.
What a day! What an experience! But I got the Coors Light, but didn't drink it because we went back to the hotel and just crashed out.
Yeah, and anyone experienced with jet lag knows what we're talking about. It's like, we'll just sit down and get comfortable.
But remember, I think we all woke up at 3:00 in the morning, and it was like
I remember you sitting on an esky, going, "Here it is."
Yeah, here it is. And there must be a picture of it too, but it wasn't. It didn't really blow me away. Unfortunately, I think I might have had 2 others in my life. But anyway, that doesn't matter. Step 1: go to Red Beach's website. That's a must. Let's go back to a lot of tangents. Let's talk about this amp for a second again.
Are we talking about your amp or the head
the head first one?
Yeah, the head first. It's got all those sounds in there, which I like. It's like if you want channel 1's AC/DC, that's the most important thing when you play a Marshall. You need to play G, D, and A. And if it doesn't do the AC/DC thing, stop and move on. I
think, so what my point, I feel like I had a point and I got really distracted because that's just what happens when I start talking about anything, particularly talking to you. In relation to, my Marshall and your JTM 45 and what that thing does is like, oh, cool, you can get clean sounds out of it. But what do you say? It's like kind of not a best of collection of Marshalls, but it's got so much versatility that it gives you these options.
It's kind of like awesome. A curated selection of the best. It's like, when you get one of those, you go to a fancy supermarket and you buy one of those pre-made deli meat platters, and there's not everything on there, but the things that are on there are the ones that you want.
You get a bit of that quince paste.
You get a bit of quince paste. Yep. You get a couple of cheeses. You get a few olives. you might get an olive with something stuffed inside of it, and there'll definitely be a salami. There'll definitely be a prosciutto if it's any good. But you might get a bit of copper, a bit of gabagool. You might not. There definitely won't be polony on there.
Yeah, that's true. They call it something different.
Polony or baloney?
I think it's polony here, but
is it polony with a P?
Yeah, it's with a P. I'm sure it's with a P. Yeah,
it's
called something else. It's called something in South Australia as well. It's called what's it called?
They've got a name for it.
Yeah. I'll ask
if you're South Australian, let us know what you call polony in the comments.
Your Farmers Union iced coffees. But this thing too, what I really like is all the Jose mods and stuff on it too, because man, I was listening to this Tone Talk and they're talking about a Jose, it might have been the Fortis one that went for $45,000.
Big money.
Man, that's just too much for a fucking amp. No offense to anybody, but that's a lot of money. I can't afford that stuff. And maybe it's worth it, but
if 45 grand isn't much to you though, you're just I want it.
That's true.
I want it. Give it me.
But I do like the fact that you can get that a Jose thing out of that, and then you can also get a clean sound, and it's really usable. So
the killer app,
man.
The most well thought out feature I think is there's dual master volumes for anyone who's ever used a Jose style amp. When you kick in the saturation or the clipping diodes, you lose a lot of volume, which kind of makes sense because you're inserting this thing in the circuit which inhibits any more volume. It just clips. It acts like a limiter essentially. So if you were to switch to that, well, you're going to have volume drop. You don't want that. So you can kick in a second master volume to like compensate for that.
How does that work on that amp? Because I didn't check that. Is that master volume MIDI switchable as well, or is that running channel 1 and 2? Okay.
Yep. So the masters are global. So yeah, even if you wanted to use it to like control your clean to dirty volume or something, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's cool to kick that in, but you'd leave it on. It's like, no, you just kick in the other master volume. So
and I can't remember, is 1 and 2 on that voiced the same or voiced differently?
I think they've the master volumes or the channels.
The channels.
I think they're all voiced differently. Like channel 3 sounds a bit spittier and angrier than channel 2.
I feel like I remember that from your video. We didn't really play with that too much when we just cranked it up, so.
I mean, I tried his Cali amp, which channel 2 and channel 3 kind of remind me of that, where it's like the different.
That thing looks awesome too.
Different levels of saturation. So it's been cool to see that go from just like anything you see, I don't know, YouTube channel developer or something, where it's like, oh, there's this guy who does some mods and started doing some videos, and it seems like they've kind of found their groove with it. And it's an incredible resource. Very, very rare to find that kind of someone who's like, they know what's up. They're all over the design elements of it, and they can play great, and they can present.
Yep.
So triple threat, Jason Tong, shout out, friend of the podcast.
Musical theatre, Yep. Dancing, acting, singing.
Exactly.
Last comment on that, the MIDI switching. I like that concept so much. Maybe it's just really difficult to implement in other amps. I don't know. I haven't seen it before, but the bright switches and stuff, it's kind of like, that's a nice, coming from digital, like particularly all that stuff, to be able to dial that in differently. My pedal board's really complicated with using a Morningstar MIDI controller. I've got like a lot of MIDI shit going here, there, and everywhere.
You do a podcast about that pedal board. We probably should.
It's it's pretty. Oh, it's not unnecessarily complicated. It's like as complicated as it needs to be to do the job I need to do.
It's a solution.
It's a solution. That's right. But considering I already have that implemented in my board, it sort of makes sense to have an amp that can do so much switching stuff. And also, because we're in my studio at the moment, and not that anyone could see it, and we're not going to move the camera, but I have a little Stream Deck.
Yes,
and
that's
I'm not sure if you can see actually too. I've got a KHE amp switcher there. I got lots of stuff. Using the Stream Deck and SoundFlow for my workflow, I've got a bunch of MIDI switching stuff that I can do. So I can sit at my desk and change the channels on the KHE.
8 amps, 8 cabs.
8 amps, 4 cabs.
8 amps, 4 cabs.
But yeah, I mean it's all MIDI, and also I've got a Rocktron pedal switcher thing in there too. So it's all said unnecessarily complicated perhaps, but it's really cool. Like it gets me thinking now that MIDI's implemented on a head, how to just work that in with like a bunch of preset sounds.
It's like kind of just other MIDI capable tube heads, like the JP2C has MIDI,
but not with like bright switches and stuff, right? I thought that's a bit more.
Yeah, it's more just like you can change the channels and do a few things, and certainly not anything Marshall.
Because like the Messer as well, I got the pink Recto up there, which I didn't realize you could get the little.
It's not
MIDI.
a hat; it's actually an amp.
Yeah, that's right. It's a very cool amp. Funny story. We'll talk about it another time. But I didn't realize you can get a little box that MIDI switches
the RJM.
Stuff. No, like Messer makes a thing.
The MIDI Abacus.
Might be that. There's one on our marketplace here at the moment, which I thought about.
That's cool.
But or
MIDI Matrix or something.
Maybe it's that one. Yeah.
The MIDI Abacus was the ancient Greek version of that, of course.
Is that Greek or Chinese?
I think you might be starting a culture war with that one.
I don't know. Let's not get started.
The jury's almost definitely out on where the abacus was invented.
Is that real? I didn't know that.
I don't know,
mate. Leon knows a lot about world history and stuff, so I trust you if you. Yeah.
Someone can fact check us in the comments.
But I really like that amp. I feel like I'm talking it up too much, but it sounds great. Yeah.
A nice domestic really product for us Australians. The other cool thing about it as well is obviously Jason's making them in Australia. I know he's partnered with an amp company in the States, and they'll be making them domestically in the US as well. So if you're in America, you don't have to pay the hideous import taxes and shipping, which is another hideous element to it.
Which is unfortunately why I've still never played a Friedman amp, because they're so freaking expensive here, man.
Yeah, I mean, so the price point for the head first, I saw a few people say like, oh my God, that's 4,500 Australian dollars. If you want a BE Deluxe, they start at 7,000 Australian dollars. which is just the nature of the beast because you got to ship them
Yep.
and they're heavy and you got to pay import taxes and duties, and obviously then you got to offer warranty support and things like that. So, it's probably justified.
Oh, yeah. It's just, that hurts, man.
But,
Like, that's
when
a
you
lot of
look
gigs.
at, when you take all of that in and you look on Sweetwater and it's however much it is,
Yep.
you go, oh, that's not that much money. And then you see it here and you just kind of shudder. But still not as bad as it was when we started, the mid 2000s when the Aussie dollar was worth like 45 US cents.
Oh, man. That was hard.
You had no internet shopping or any of that.
A recto's probably not changed in price over that time, hey? Because I feel like a dual recto was like $5,000 back in the 2000s,
I reckon in
right?
relative dollars they're better now.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of inflation. But back then, it was $5,000 if you wanted a dual rectifier. And for comparison, what could you get a DSL for? $1,800?
Yeah, probably $1,800.
Yeah,
or so.
brand new. Might be over exaggerating it or misremembering stuff, but yeah, that was the thing. They were just unattainable for a lot of people, which is kind of how we got into like, hey, this stuff.
The rack stuff, yeah. Which, what a segue, Uncle Leon.
There we go.
Well,
it's almost like I've done this before.
Yeah, what a professional. We do happen to have the ADA Rack of Doom behind us, which leads beautifully into the other video that you released this week.
This is just an original MP1?
Okay, let's see. Yes, this is an MP1 with the second firmware.
Okay, so the one that really started it all. Then
there's an
Rarebird.
The MP1 Classic, which
came out after the MP2.
That's right. And then the ADA MP2 as well. And then there's a microtube power amp here and an ADA B200S that I've had for a long time. And I also have
another MP1 down here.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's in the shop, but my original ADA MP1, which has got the original firmware on it, and then a microcab, ADA microcab too.
Yeah, and I'm pretty certain that the firmware just changes some MIDI stuff, has nothing to do with tone.
I think you're probably right. If you've ever been on, excuse me while I just adjust this.
Ever been on ADAdepot.com?
Yeah, there was a bit of...
One of the nicest places on the internet, by the way.
Yeah, but like anything, there's a lot of opinions. I kind of feel like I read something whereby, it changes the tone and da-da-da, there might be something different. It's possible. I can't confirm that. However, I can say that, do you know what? I take it back. This is my original one.
Right,
and that
right.
is
And
because that one's
new.
a bit kind of cooked at the moment. But this one in the rack has got the new firmware on it. But this one actually sounds really good. My original one is very busted because I tried to do the input jack mod when I was 18 and I really fried stuff. I got it to work again, but it's pretty unreliable now. But let's talk about that plugin.
Nimbrini
the
audio.
Nimbrini plugin. Because that's
really good.
Yeah, that sounded really good. I haven't tried it yet because I just haven't had time to download it. But yeah, I didn't realize that was even coming out until I just saw your video. Oh no, you sent me a screenshot of it. I was like,
a bunch of people it was one of those things where I got like a dozen comments in the space of a day or something, which was like, hey, Leon, have you seen this? Hey, Leon, have you seen this? Which is very nice that people are onto it because I'm certainly not onto it.
You just need to be more switched in, man. More time on Twitter, more time on Instagram. Depths of the internet.
See, that's definitely your role here. You're the tastemaker.
I'm just on Twitter 24 hours a day, just, learning.
What's your Twitter handle, Troy?
At Troy Nababan, TroyNababan, on Instagram as well. Instagram, they're both cool. But, sorry.
Yeah, so, they did an ADA MP1 plugin that sounds like an ADA MP1. And there's some, they did some cool stuff, like they added some pre-EQ and post-EQ, and there's a power amp sim and IR loading, and what do they have in there? It's funny because it's, some of the effects in there are like they went, well, the MP2 had this stuff because it's chorus, got to have chorus on there. Trem, delay, the delay sounds really good. There's built-in reverb. It's that stuff's not the main feature. I don't think it would replace your favorite delay or reverb plugin, but pretty handy to have in there. Most importantly, it's got the little blue-looking buttons and the same notches. You know how it was like when you go... like bass and treble go up in 2 and 4, but mid goes in threes.
Yep. And then the gain control also jumps if you're really low in the gain. Or I think as you go past about 5 or 6 or something, it goes in 0.5s.
And I mean, probably one of the most important things about the ADA is the fact that You know, to paraphrase Guga Foods, it's a membrane, guys.
We gotta leave that membrane on if you're gonna
leave
cook
the
ribs.
membrane on. The little blue squishy buttons. If you've never tried one, I guess there would have been like synthesizers around the same time that had the similar.
Yeah, I suppose so.
I'm thinking of a very particular thing. I think of the MP1 when I think of it, but I feel like I've definitely played synths where it's like they have the same.
Is that on the DX7 as well?
Maybe.
Yeah, probably. In terms of, because I haven't played with the app. In terms of interface, is it a pain in the ass to have to click twice to just move bass, like in treble and stuff, up and down? Does it make a difference? Because it's a pain in the ass on the unit, and that's been a complaint. If you, okay, being a traditionalist with the unit itself, it makes sense that it looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
But if it was hypothetically like just a knob that you turn or a slider to turn up and down, would that make it easier or better, do you think, to dial in?
Well, I pretty much set it in one place, and I was like, "This is it. This is the sound." So, yeah, I guess it does replicate some of the quirks. Probably not for better.
But that's a minimal thing, right? Like, it sounded good.
Yeah.
My takeaway from like the video that you did to just break it down was like when I was trying to build a rack in 2006, because I got that first 80 one in 2006 on eBay. The first eBay purchase I ever got. It was that, and I got a Marshall 4x12 with V30s in it.
That's awesome.
Which I still use. That's like my number one cab. But I didn't realize because I only bought it because I saw on the Racer X forum that Paul Gilbert was using it, and I think Jason Becker was using it, and Nuno Betancourt and all these guys, and Michael Wagner used it for a bunch of stuff, Skid Row and whatnot.
Obviously, if I have this gear, I will immediately be as good at guitar as these guys are.
Yeah, but it wasn't until I bought it that I realized that it needs a power amp. Because I knew stuff. I wasn't completely stupid about gear and whatnot, but I that didn't really click for me. I knew stuff. I wasn't completely oblivious to what's required in a rig, but it's like, all right, I've got the preamp. Now I want to be able to plug it into an amplifier. So what am I going to use so I can hear it through a speaker cab? And at the time, I had a Marshall AVT 1x12 combo.
Mighty AVT.
Yeah, AVT 100, which it actually sounded sort of okay through that.
When's the AVT line going to have a renaissance? Because
the
original Valve states people are all about for the early death metal stuff. And
yeah.
I haven't really caught a lot of videos about the AVT.
The 2000 was not great. It was great when you needed an amp in 2004 and you didn't have a lot of money. Like that was what happened with me. But I digress. So I had that as a power amp and as a speaker and stuff. And I think I was running that into the 4x12 because, 18, what else are you going to do? But I was like, all right, got to build a rack now. Need a power amp. I obviously need a tube power amp, but that's too expensive. So I got the next best thing, which was that guy, which sounds not amazing. Need effects, get a quadriverb.
Yeah.
It's too noisy. I definitely need a gate. Yep. So I got a Rocktron Hush. And then it just kind of keep going and going.
This is how these things happen. This is why I say to people, don't build a rack.
Yeah. But this is the thing about that plugin that I really liked, where it's like, okay, you've got reverb, delay, chorus, and then you've got a power amp simulator thing in there too, with like resonance and presence control, and an IR loader, and a noise gate. And it's like, it's the rack that I wanted to have when I was building a rack, and it's in one $30 plugin. That's very, very cool.
Yeah, exactly. So, someone had a go at me because I dared mention in my video that I got the plugin for free, which, surprise, surprise, you watch a plugin demo on YouTube, the company has probably sent out a bunch of not for resale licenses, which is just what happens. That's how this thing works. And they're like, you couldn't spare $30. And,
Well, whoever said that?
I could, but the kind of reality is that my time is worth a lot more than that. And I wanted to check it out because people were like, hey, it would be cool if you did a video for this particular thing. So I figure it probably flows both ways, where I can do a video and then the company who makes the awesome plugin, they get a bunch of free advertising, and the people who wanted to hear it, they don't have to spend the money first to know if it sounds good. And then if they like it, they can go and spend the money and everyone's happy.
Let me tell you something, Uncle Leon.
That's a podcast for another day, though.
My time is not worth the $30 to buy the plugin, and I liked the video, so I'm going to go spend $30 and buy that plugin.
There you go.
Bam, it's even Stevens.
I reckon for most people out there, like the used prices for MP1s are ridiculous now as well.
Man, it's silly.
It is literally a way better value proposition because kind of looks the same. It's less noisy.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to use. You get a bunch of stuff with it, and it's like 20 times less expensive.
It's a pain in the ass. Like, honestly, I love it because I guess I kind of collect the stuff a little bit. It's not something I need to collect considering all the other stuff I collect, but I just like it for nostalgia reasons, right? But it's super noisy. They're super unreliable. Like I had one,
and this isn't just the MP1. This kind of applies to
all the rack stuff.
A lot of this gear, because it was built to a price point for people as
Yeah.
well. You know, not everything was an Eventide H3000.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
it's like it's hard to maintain it if you really want to maintain it and use it. I mean, I'll be completely honest. This right now is purely like for show. It's not plugged in and working. Not that it won't be, but I don't need to use it at the moment. And it was convenient to throw it all in this rack, so that's why it sits there. And I have one in the other rack to patch in if I feel like it. But I mean, of these units, like, as I said, this one needs serious repair. The MP Classic is, I think, a 110 one as well, so it needs a new power transformer. The MP2 is really cooked.
Oh man,
Like,
my MP2 is cooked.
Remember
as well.
this time last
Yeah.
year? So as it turns out, there's like a resistor. This is a little nerdy, but there is a resistor that you can change. It's underneath one of the tubes, and it's like a 20-cent resistor. It's not that difficult. So it was around Easter time last year.
Yeah,
I was
that's
like,
right.
oh sweet, I'm just going to replace this resistor. No problemo. So I did it because it was, you know, not super dangerous in terms of the piece of gear that it was. It's turned off and unplugged from the wall. Changed the resistor, fired it back up. Uncle Leon, my MP2, it's not noisy anymore. No problem. Then after like 10 minutes, it just starts to go, brrr, and I can't work out what it is anymore. And I ripped the whole thing open again, tried to...
My Rockmaster's doing that at the moment.
Yeah, but your MP2's the same, isn't it? Like,
Exactly
it's
the
the exact same noise.
The
And
first 5, because I think that has, 8 or 10 different voicings on
Yeah.
it. The first 5 are fine. Then you get
Yeah.
to like number 6 and it's just no bueno.
Yeah, so again, if you buy it, like, in terms of a collector's thing or whatever, then that's awesome. But you have to maintain it, and there's a lot of resources for ADA stuff on the ADA Depot,
88 Depot.
And the Marshall JMP as
Marshall
well.
JMP on ADA Depot is
Yep.
the guru.
And has the website where you can order all the replacement
All the
parts.
mod
And
kits and
I was
stuff.
going to do that about April or so last year because I put a massive list together of the replacement transformers, the noise mod kits, I think, and a few other bits and pieces. But it was going to cost me like $400 or $500 to do it for units that I'm probably not going to use a hell of a lot. And some of it just to make the units usable, which, you know, I'm really like, you know, shitting on this stuff, which I don't mean to, but it's just the unfortunate reality of 30-plus-year-old gear.
Yeah. Or even for modern workflows. you
Yeah.
know? It's like awesome to have an Eventide, or it's awesome to have an old Roland delay, but, you know, if you're in the flow of mixing something and you go, oh, I just need to patch that piece of hardware in, the sort of argument is it's like, well, working fast is often a lot better, so you can just slap Echo Boy on and be like, there's my 300 millisecond delay, moving on to the next problem that I have to solve in the mix. So
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, that's a thing.
anyway, it's the plugin looks awesome and it sounded really good. It sounded like an MP1 as far as I could tell. And he said, I really like the power amp simulation thing on there, because one thing I've found on other, like the 2 notes things like this, where I'm sure it's different the way it works, but cranking that up and like manipulating that makes a massive difference if
big
using
time.
hardware preamps. I've had that experience with the Synergy stuff because I've got a Syn 1. I've got a Syn 30 head now as well, which sounds really great. But the Syn 1 through the Torpedo with the power amp on and cranked really loud makes it sound like an amp. Whereas without that in there, it's a little sort of sterile.
Because I see that a lot. People are like, oh, I just run this module into an IR. It's like, bro, you're missing out. Missing out on part of the
step
magic.
makes a difference. And the Cab M as well does that in there
Yeah.
too, which I've got one of those. Which I was using that with the MP1. The Cab M with the MP1. I've got a rack mixer, so the outputs were filtering through that, and they were all going through that thing, the Cab M. But yeah, it makes a difference. It gives it a bit more life and tone.
Oh, it's the same thing like with the Synergy stuff as well. As I've tried running the modules into an IR to play direct, but you patch them into the power amp and then a proper reactive load, and you're like, this feels like an amp now. This is party time, you know?
It's, yeah, different sort of thing. The SAG control on that's really, yeah.
Speaking of clever people, Stephen Fryette, a very, very, very clever amp designer.
The
Probably like one of, you know, there wouldn't be that many people who know more about amps than someone like Steve.
Yeah,
And like in clever solutions as well. Like you look at like the SAG control and the synergy stuff.
I'm really keen because I got to get that 290. It's 292, right? The power amp. There's one that we're going to borrow at some point soon and just have a little bit of a
we did a gig
with
a guy. A band of guys being dudes, and the guitar player was using an AX8 but into a 292, and it was awesome. Yeah. And it was interesting to saying it's like, man, it's just really, really clean.
Yeah.
But just, it gives you the thud.
But there's a switch on that too, where it can be like full range or clean,
it can
it can be
kind of a bit more hi-fi, which is
really clever.
Again,
the modelers and stuff.
Clever stuff.
The have you played a power station? I can't remember.
No.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm missing out.
I was going to order one before I got the Sin 30, but there was a period of time when you just couldn't get them in Australia. Like second hand or brand new. They were just like...
Getting gear in Australia being the common thread in our lives.
It's like the Sin 30. Just so happens I got one second hand from a guy over east, but you couldn't get the heads here. There was a 50, I think the Sin 50 was available, but not the Sin 30.
I always feel like with gear here, someone has to suffer and take some kind of loss, because it's either like, there's this piece of gear, you can only get it from the States, and there's all this duty on top of it, and by the time I do it, I'm suffering.
Man.
Or something pops up and you're like, I can't believe it's that cheap. This poor person who bought this brand new is probably losing a whole bunch of money.
You and I have been really lucky with some of the stuff that we've been able
amazing.
to get. Like, it's kind of silly. I have a Splawn Nitro, which is also sitting in that rack, which that cost me $800 AUD. So what's that, 500 US?
About $12 at the moment,
But I got it because I don't think anyone knew what it was. I knew what it was because they sound awesome. But I just need a retube, and it was basically good to go.
Someone had to know at some point to get that amp into
that
Australia.
Amp, when it was listed, someone had to import it in because you certainly can't get them locally. And the poor guy, I think he had it listed for like $1,600 originally, and then no one bought it. And then it was relisted for $800. I'm like, thank you so much.
I mean, to be fair, I've done that with some gears sometimes where I'm like, I don't care. I just don't want it taking up space anymore. So, some make an offer, cool. Or you sell it to your mates or something like that, So, but someone has to cop it sweet somewhere, which is it's nice that you can actually get this stuff now for a lot of Aussies buying things on the internet. It was a very much closed market. If you went to a music store and you got Marshalls, if it was a really good music store, they'd have Boogies. If it was a music store that was trying to be a really good music store, they'd have like Hughes and Kettner, and everyone would go, Hughes and Kettner?
Oh, speaking of MIDI switchable amps, do you remember the Switchblade?
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, Hughes and Kettner, some great stuff. You just never heard of them.
Yeah.
They just, some shop suddenly had these amps, and you're like, why would you buy that when you can buy a Marshall? And it's like, well, it does this and it does
That's
this.
That's the thing that sucks, man. Like, I think it was
tonal conservatism.
Yeah. Just to go back a little bit, like I think Jason on one of the videos I saw him talking about, maybe like he was talking to Dave Friedman about something, but it's just the supply or lack of supply of Marshalls back in the day.
Yeah.
It's like Americans, man, and obviously people in Europe and stuff too, like you had access to cool amps. Like there wasn't people bringing in like the mid 70s, like just an abundance of Marshall JMPs and Plexis and stuff.
So my dad said his first amp, he bought a full stack, and it was made by a company called Wasp.
Oh, I think I've heard of Wasp.
And they're kind of like, people who know about Wasp know about Wasp. But yeah, they were basically made because you couldn't readily get things like Marshalls and, even guitars, if you could. And I've heard some unconfirmed stories about, Australia kind of gets the B stock. Not the real B stock, but, the big markets get first dibs on, especially with big brands. If it's Fender or Gibson, and they're churning stuff out, it's, of course it would make sense if you're Sweetwater and your buying power is infinity, then you're going to just get the nice stuff and keep people happy. Whereas down here, the suppliers, they have a slightly more limited choice.
I've had, I think I've told this to you, like very mixed experiences with Gibson acoustic guitars, where if I tried a J200 here, and by here I mean in WA
Sunny
or if
Perth,
over east,
Western Australia.
it didn't really sort of blow me away as much as I was expecting it would for a guitar that costs so like $6,000, $7,000.
Yeah.
And then we went to Guitar Center in where is it, in like Dallas or one of these
Oklahoma City or somewhere like
and
that.
it's like every single one you pick up sounds
ruled.
like great. Like, and not necessarily the best guitar you've ever played, but like, oh, that sounds good. Oh, that one sounds good. Which is really strange. But I mean, that, again, unconfirmed and purely anecdotal, so not scientific, doesn't necessarily mean anything. But yeah.
The great anti-Aussie gear conspiracy podcast.
Trying to just push us down, you know?
Just trying to keep the Aussies down.
Yep.
Yeah, big time. And, you know, it makes sense. Like, Australia's a country of, 25, 26 million people.
Yeah.
Most of whom aren't super invested in the arts or music or anything like that.
Yep.
So you just kind of deal with what you've got.
Yeah, which is like, you know, my Marshall JMP, that's said 77. I don't know when that came to the country. It's really beat up. And that was modded by a local guy named Willie Westlake, who he was apparently the Marshall whisperer of Perth at the time. I don't know. He's died, I think, but I don't know when or how long ago it was. But yeah, I mean, there's clearly a couple of them around, and there was just like the knowledge of what to do with them was so limited because no internet and all this sort of stuff. It's just, yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice when you do find one that's been around the traps and people have kind of used and abused it a little bit, but I just wish there was more. Like,
yeah,
and not like ridiculous, not one for every man, woman, and child.
Not everyone needs a vintage Marshall, but
yeah,
for the people who do, it's a bit Hunger Games, isn't it?
And not just Marshalls, like Fenders as well. Like, I remember seeing like pictures of guys in like Nashville or LA or wherever, and it's just walls of Fender Deluxes or Tweeds and stuff.
Yeah,
it's like, man, you can't find like the best vintage stuff because it just isn't around. I mean, maybe there's more of a reach.
Joe Bonamassa owns it now, so you can never get any of the best vintage stuff. But even then, for the second tier stuff,
even the second, this is a real unfortunate thing. Is like, for as much as I love guitars, there's my like sound memory of stuff and I haven't been able to experience a lot of stuff.
A good example of that is, what was it, 2016? I went to the States for Christmas with my wife, who's American and lives in Perth now. Had lived in Dallas. Her family still lives in Dallas. Your wife
lives with you now, does she?
Yeah. It's a nice change. And there was Killer Vintage Guitars had just opened up. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, apparently there's a new guitar store. I'm going to go look at it. And just the stuff they had in there was like mind-blowing. And they're like, oh, yeah, we just got this 59 Junior in. Do you want to have a play? So I'm playing this 59 Junior. He's like, yeah, I got this 5150 combo, bought it off Eddie. Or like off, they were having a big sell-off from the studio.
Yep.
Still had apparently it was his backstage practice amp. Still had the settings marked on it.
Right.
And it's like, oh, yeah, George Lynch called me 2 hours ago and said he's going to come and check out that Junior. So, and it was just like, okay, this is all very heady stuff from someone whose local music store, the nicest thing you could get was a Godin.
Godin's a good guitar, though.
Hey, Godin's a good guitars, but the mystique around them when you're 13 is not the same as a 59 Junior. So
yeah,
and I have the worst mobile phone video available of me playing it, which sounds like garbage, but still people are like, oh wow, it's this and this. It sounds great, bro. It's like, well, it did sound great, but this doesn't sound great. Mate. So yeah, there's just not that. I mean, the closest thing might have been Jackson's Rare Guitars.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a bit of a saga apparently.
Yeah. That was over East, right?
That was over East. That was in Sydney.
We went there, didn't we? Didn't we go there in 2011?
That's where I bought my Hamer Standard from.
Right, yeah. I got a strap from there. I got a strap. That was really cool. I got a purple, florally.
We've all had that experience where it's like, wow, the greatest music store in the world. I should probably buy something. Do you guys have picks with your name on it? Yeah, I'll take just one.
We got T-shirts from Norm's Rare Guitars.
Norm's Rare Guitars they were Champasauruses. That was awesome.
And that jazz bass, Leon's jazz bass, I'm glad you got it. Like, I was this close. I found a Japanese jazz bass hanging on the wall, and I was like, oh, this feels really good.
So the backstory is we rolled into America for our first ever tour. Troy and our management at the time in tow. So 6 people, 6 adults. And I was like, we didn't take guitars. We were just like, we'll just buy gear. I saved up a bunch of money. I'm like, going to buy a nice guitar, Ryan will buy a bass, Cam will buy some drums, because it was cheaper to do that than it was to hire gear for a couple of weeks. So may as well get some stuff you can take home. And yeah, went to Norm's, and who we go? We went with Trent.
Yep.
Our buddy Trent. Shout out to Trent. If you're watching this, I think Trent's in Sydney now. Anyway, Trent was living in LA at the time. I was like, yeah, we'll go to Norm's. And yeah, it was, one, amazing because, you know, I'd seen photos online and used to read the website all the time. And it was amazing how casual they were just like, yeah, cool, check it out. You want to play that? Go for it.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, they gave me a really good deal. I bought a PRS mirror and that Japanese jazz bass. They hooked me up.
Yep.
And then they were like, you guys should probably take some T-shirts as well. Enjoy yourselves. So
Did they give us? I feel like I bought that T-shirt. Maybe they gave it to us. I don't remember. It was a long
I think
time
they
ago.
gave us the T-shirts.
Maybe they gave you the T-shirt and I had to buy one.
Oh, there you go.
Mate, I'm not, not Leon Ragdoll here. They didn't know in the future.
It's almost like I spent a bunch of money there already on non-picks.
But that jazz bass was great. And I remember playing it and I was like, oh, this is cool. Leon, try this. And then you're like, yeah, I'm going to buy this.
And then Ryan played it for like the next bunch of tours anyway, and I hardly played it. So
yeah, but that's a great bass. And that mirror too is awesome. But you dropped that, right?
oh my God. Yeah. I
Yeah.
I was teaching at school and I don't know what happened, but I came into the room and it had fallen off my chair and the neck was just like, dunk.
Oh.
It's kind of been fixed. It's not the same. I'd buy another one in a heartbeat though, because they're great guitars.
Yeah, there was like a period where, because remember right before that, you were playing
that
the Hamer
Junior style thing, yeah.
Yeah, and that was awesome.
Very into that style of guitar at the time.
Yeah, and then got the mirror, and yeah, that's a cool guitar. The mirror's cool. Do you still play that Junior?
Yeah. It's a great little P90 guitar.
I really want to. I remember there was one like not long after that on eBay, like pretty cheap, like around the same sort of time.
So I think I went through a phase where I was like, you know what'll be my thing? Hamer guitars.
Yeah, I remember.
And still own a bunch of Hamer guitars. One of them's that standard is a great guitar. The others are pretty good. They don't get as much playtime as they probably deserve, but yeah, that didn't become a thing clearly.
Yeah, what was the smaller one?
The Artist? It's like a Mini 335.
Oh no, not that one. The Stratty thing, the Ready Strat thing.
The Ready Strat. Oh, the Vintage S.
Is that the one?
Yes.
That was okay.
That now belongs to friend of the channel, Ben Wilson.
Oh, did he buy it?
Yep.
Oh, nice.
Gave
Shout out
Benno
Ben.
a sweet deal.
The I didn't like the grey. What was the one that had the paint job on it?
Yes, the Chaparral. The Chaparral I sold.
I didn't like the way that felt, and I also didn't like was it a double cut red Les Paul looking thing?
It's called a Sunburst.
Yeah.
Great name for a guitar.
Yeah, that one didn't.
That one's okay.
Yeah, it didn't really feel the best, but I mean,
I love the quilt top on it. Very, very nice.
They look amazing.
I'd always wanted one of those, so
do you know what?
Good deal on that.
What it was for me with those guitars is that it kind of had like it might have just been the lacquer on the back of the neck. It felt like they're a little too heavy.
Stick.
Yeah, it's
and
like
then the necks they felt like they got thinner the higher you went.
Yeah, it was a bit
strange
of a
profile.
Yeah,
because the Explorer shape one I have, that's got like a club. That's got a great.
That's
neck.
a cool guitar. I like
but
that
that's
one.
a 2008. They kind of.
Right.
I don't know. They probably just changed it up a little bit more. I think their ex-master builder, Mike Shishkov, now builds those style of guitars as Shishkov guitars. So if you're looking for like a Hamer standard and you don't want to spend 20 grand, probably
20 grand. Jeez.
Man, they're desirable guitars now,
wow.
Especially the original ones they call 4-digit serials.
Okay.
So like a 4-digit standard is big money.
Right.
Big money. Or almost in that unobtainium kind of range. So
yeah,
it's like that. And who was I speaking to? And they were telling me about how they got like a birth year Les Paul. Justin York, York Audio, best IRs out there. Paramore,
yeah,
absolute legend.
Good IRs.
And
I've got
Justin was telling me that we're going to need like some kind of sound for every name drop I give in this video. They were saying how they were like, I always wanted a birth year Les Paul, and they bought this awesome, I think it was a custom. And I was like, a birth year guitar? That's a bit of a thing. So I had in my head that I'd like to get like a birth year PRS, but it's like the third year they were in production. So it's unobtainium now.
I'm trying to think if I have a guitar from 87. I don't know if I do. I think my Ibanez guitars are a little bit like probably 90.
90?
Is the earliest Ibanez I have.
Yeah, maybe one of those, the year you learned to walk guitar.
2008? No, I don't know.
Or a year you stopped breastfeeding guitar. So like 2000 for me.
I'm trying to think of what would be cool from that era. I guess anything pointy from 87 would be the
Yeah,
one.
yeah. BC Rich.
Oh man, that would be wicked. I love BC Rich pointy guitars so much. And you know what it is? It's Uncle Jesse, Full House, like Stamos. They must have had like a BC Rich endorsement
Yep,
because
100%.
I was watching videos, no joke, like a couple of nights ago, and it's like BC Rich acoustics, BC Rich basses.
Isn't it funny that now if you had some kind of Netflix sitcom like that, the type of guitar they would be playing would be some kind of offset,
Oh yeah.
you know, like if it was a contemporary thing.
Yep.
Like one of those kind of just, what's the brand that I think of?
For like offsetty stuff.
Yeah, but like it'd be some, you know, it'd be a Jazzmaster or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
they're the like the super cool guitars. Or it would be a BC Rich. It'd be like a non-ironic pointy guitar because
Yeah.
we've been playing with the wheel has turned all the way back around.
I'd love for that to happen, man. I mean, yeah, I do have a snakeskin BC Rich. I paid $50 for it. It's in pieces. It's been in pieces for a long time.
You know what we should do? We should ask people in the comment section, because it's going to be uploaded to YouTube, is tell us about the best guitar deal you've ever got. $50 for a BC Rich seems hard to beat. I think my Ibanez Yellow RG was $150.
Yeah, I remember you told me the
That's
story.
probably-
because
yeah.
that brought back memories when you pulled that out in the channel
Yeah,
for that
yeah.
ADA video.
Yep.
Is the $50? I feel like I've had better deals than that for guitars. Maybe that is the best one.
I don't think I've paid less than $50 for a guitar. I feel like my dad has probably had one of those like, yeah, I paid $7 for a guitar, and when I stripped the paint back, it was a 1962 SG kind of story.
Yeah, I've had a lot of luck with amps.
Yeah.
And actually, okay, really quick, talking about the ADAs, I got a rack, like as in a rack case, and inside it there was an ADA MP1, a Marshall JMP, the microtube power amp there, and a Yamaha with the GP9, I think it is, the rack processor. Remember that? I think you've played that.
GEP 50?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
SPX knockoff.
Yeah,
thing?
that, but with the guitar processing. So
Yep.
four rack units in the rack, and that was 120 Australian dollars. So was that $80
That's
American?
amazing.
Yeah, and from a guy that lived like 10 minutes from me as well. It was in his back shed for years. He didn't know what it was. Or didn't know how to use it.
I think my best one was I've got an original Boss DM2 for $29.
Oh, that's
from Cash Converters.
That was from Cashies. Nice.
Yeah, and I plugged it in, it didn't work, and I was like,
Oh, yeah.
well, it serves me right. And it's the one time in my life I've like successfully fixed a pedal.
Oh.
I was reading up about it, and they were like, oh, they use the same kind of op amp as a tube screamer. So I ordered one and just like slotted it in.
Yep.
And then there was actually just a loose cable, and I did that, and
Bob's
it
Rising.
sounds fine. Which, yeah, I honestly can't think of anything better than that. I've had a few very nice things where you're like, oh, well, that's a pretty good deal. Or eBay stuff where you just bid a stupid amount and win, and you're like, well, I didn't really want to spend that money, but I guess I'm getting this guitar.
Yeah, I don't really use eBay like that. I'm a little bit too scared. I feel like I'd do that and just
Oh, the floodgates would open.
my children wouldn't be able to eat that week. So
Yes, exactly. And with that very, very happy note, I reckon we might wrap up.
that's been
We've been prattling on for a little while now. Hopefully people have enjoyed their stay with us talking about gear.
And so we're gonna put this on the YouTube.
It's going to be on the YouTube.
And we should work out how to put it on the podcast.
We'll put it on
Apple
on
podcasts and all that sort of stuff too. So you can
Use your favorite podcasting app and tune in. And
We should do a theme song too at some point. You know,
I like the sound of that.
piece of original music.
All open to suggestions. So let us know in the comment section if you enjoyed this and what you'd like us to talk about in future episodes. Maybe keep it, we'll talk about some vintage stuff, talk about some new stuff, talk about just us being, Racer X addicted teenagers and the trials and travails of all those kind of things. This was very fun, Troy.
I had a really good time. How's that? The conversation just rolls.
It feels like therapy in a way.
Came into it thinking, we'll talk about what's been on your channel. And we did that about 2 videos, and there's probably been an hour or something long. So that's pretty bloody good.
And of course, the ultimate ulterior motive is to, be sponsored by either Manscaped or Raid Shadow Legends. So they know where to find me if they would like to sponsor one of our podcasts and support what we do. Thank you to everybody who's watched this one. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, and we will see you all very soon for another installment. Take it easy.
Peace.